after studying chapter number 1 and reading it carefully, answer the following questions. Where did very poor people live in towns, and why? They lived in workhouses to get at least a bed and some sort of food. Why was Oliver's mother taken to the workhouse? She was taken there because she was poor, ill, weak, and was about to give birth. Who was Mrs. Mann? She was the woman who looked after the orphans like Oliver for the workhouse. She treated those orphans cruelly and always took some of their money for herself. Therefore, the boys never had very much to eat. Why did Mr. Bumble visit Mrs. Mann? Mr. Bumble, who was an official from the workhouse, visited Mrs. Mann to take older children from poor families to work for their food at the workhouse. How did Oliver feel when he left Mrs. Mann's house? Oliver was chosen to work in the workhouse because he grew enough to work for his food. Although he was told that he was lucky for finding work, food and bed for nothing, Oliver felt sad for leaving his friends and his only home. How was Oliver and the other children treated in the workhouse? Their life was hard, as the food was never enough. Beds were very uncomfortable, and all they only ate was a thin soup. What did the children plan for? Why? And what was the result? For not having enough food, the children at the workhouse decided to ask for more food and chose Oliver to ask for it. The officials at the workhouse were very astonished and furious that they punished Oliver. How was Oliver punished? He was locked in a dark room, and Mr. Bumble always bet him in front of the other children to be an example. Who was Mr. Sowerberry? He was a coffin maker. He took Oliver as an apprentice after the workhouse had decided to get rid of him. He also took the £5 reward. Why did Oliver attack Noah Claypole? Noah, Mr. Sowerberry's apprentice, insulted Oliver's mother, saying that she was no good at anything. So, Oliver felt both ashamed and angry. What did Mr. Bumble say about Oliver's cruel manner? He thought that Mrs. Sowerberry had been too kind to Oliver and had given him too much meat. What did Mr. Bumble advise Mrs. Sowerberry to do? He advised her to keep locking Oliver in the cellar without food for some days. Then feed him only thin soup. Why did Oliver run away from Mr. Sowerberry's house? Oliver found that his life there was unbearable, so he ran away. What's the setting of the story? It was late at night in a town near London, in England, during the Industrial Revolution. How much time passed from the beginning of the chapter till the end? 9 years. What 3 places did Oliver live in? Oliver lived at Mrs. Mann's house until he became 9. Then he moved to the workhouse, from which he was taken to Mr. Sowerberry's house. Important quotations. Poor woman, she was so beautiful, will never know who she was. Who said these words? The nurse who was with Oliver's mother when she gave birth. Who is the beautiful woman? Oliver's mother. Why will they never know who she was? They will never know who she was because no one knew her name or had seen her in this place before. Please, sir, I want some more. Who said these words, and to whom? Oliver said these words to the master who gave them food at the workhouse. Why did this person say it? Oliver said so because he was close to starving. What was the result of his request? He was punished and apprenticed at Mr. Sowerberry, the coffin maker. You've given him too much meat. Who said these words, and to whom? Mr. Bumble said these words to Mrs. Sowerberry. Why did this person say it? He said so because Oliver had talked to him in a menacing voice. Where was the speaker when he said that? He was at Mr. Sowerberry's house. Find the mistake and correct it. Oliver was born in the orphanage. Oliver was born in the workhouse. Oliver's mother died after she had an accident. Oliver's mother died after she gave birth. Mr. Bumble took Oliver as an apprentice. Mr. Sowerberry took Oliver as an apprentice. Mrs. Sowerberry was in charge of the orphanage. Mrs. Mann was in charge of the orphanage. Mrs. Mann was present when Oliver was born. The nurse was present when Oliver was born. Thanks for listening. With Nafham, learn easily and simply.